Hello and welcome. Today's a very exciting day. Aside from being the 57th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, it is Flight 13, Lucky 13 of Starship. And we're gonna see how it does. Let's tune in. They got the stream going right now. I got it muted just so I can open up this thing, but they are talking about data centers in space, which, everyone loves data centers, right? Right? Well, let's see what they're talking about.
Transform how our planet powers AI. And to unlock all of that, we get to our third limiting factor. We need to make significantly more chips, and we got to do it fast. And that's where we're going with Terafab. This is going to be the most epic chip building effort ever. And we say epic. You just look at the scale of this thing. That's the size of a Tesla Gigafactory, about 10 million square feet. We need to think bigger. We're looking at about 100 million square feet, so you're talking 10 gigafactories worth of space. It all sounds a bit fantastical, a bit out there, but all of this together represents a step towards becoming a galactic civilization, harnessing more power from our nearest star, supporting the reality-shifting AI applications that are coming, and advancing humanity's multiplanetary future. So if you want to learn more about that, you can watch that full conversation on our website at SpaceXAI/StarMine. So a lot of really cool stuff coming. Kate, future looking pretty sweet, but first things first, Flight 13.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The future is built on progressive steps like today's test. Now, let's dive into the flight profile.
Right, so today we'll be starting with liftoff of Pad 2 here at Starbase. Super Heavy will ignite those 33 Raptor 3 engines, and we will then power through ascent ahead of our hot stage separation, which is when the booster will shut down all but 5 engines at the bottom. Stage 2 will then light its own Raptor engines, pushing off of Super Heavy and starting that hot stage separation. We will then have the directional booster flip, with Super Heavy igniting those 33 Raptor engines. And after coasting for a few minutes, the booster will then target a landing burn and splash down a few miles off the coast of Starbase.
Ship keeps the fun going with its ascent burn to a suborbital trajectory. We then deploy those 20 Starlink V3 satellites, and we plan to relight a single Raptor engine. Re-entry then follows a few minutes later, which should provide some amazing views via Starlink of the ship's blistering re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere. A plasma blanket will form around the vehicle, and this never fails to provide epic scenes as the vehicle comes back. And lastly, we'll conclude today's test with a landing flip, landing burn, and a splashdown in the Indian Ocean. And with that, let's kick it back up to Dan for a countdown update.
Hey, thanks, Kate. Good news is very little news. We are continuing to look on track for a liftoff today, not tracking any issues on the vehicle or the pad side. Range status continues to be green. Reminder, we're tracking the range out in the Gulf off the coast of Starbase where we're launching over, and then also out in the Indian Ocean where we're hopefully sending a Starship in just about 11 minutes from now. Weather looks gorgeous, blue skies, low winds, couple of clouds, not a concern for flight today. And again, the vehicle and the pad both looking great. We are in kind of the latter stages of propellant loading. We got into the go, no go with the flight control team at about T-minus 1 hour, and then we've been loading prop for about, quick math, about 26 minutes now. We're going to continue loading propellant, that's your liquid oxygen, your liquid methane, onto both of these vehicles until just a little over 2 minutes before we lift off. We'll close out on the ship at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds, and on the booster before that at about 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So at the moment, we're looking good. We're counting down to the very top of our window. It was a 90-minute window. It opens right at 5:45 p.m. Central Time. Looking good to hit that right at the top. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Now, as teams prepare for today's launch from Texas, work is also continuing on the other side of the Gulf in Florida, where Starship will soon be launching, potentially later this year.
That's right. Starship flights from Florida will initially lift off from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Teams are working through Starship system activations, performing initial tower chopstick motion tests, confirming the operation of the hold downs on the launch mount, and performing multiple integrated tests of the propellant farms, water farm, diverter, and launch mount. With Starship coming to 39A, the launch complex will soon have 2 operational pads for 2 very different rockets with Starship and Falcon Heavy. It has been awesome to see the 39A Starship program come to life over several years, and it's going to be exciting to soon see a Starship launch from this historic pad.
Yeah, we're super excited. But 39A isn't SpaceX's only pad in Florida. Just a few miles down the coast at Space Launch Complex 37, the first of 2 Starship launch pads at that site is quickly taking shape. Pad 37A is targeted to be ready for flight operations early next year, which is very fast considering we only started construction on the pad in November. This year, teams have worked through ground preparations at the pad and fuel farms while also fully excavating the flame trench for Pad 37A. In June, stacking began of the launch and catch tower, and you can see that there on your screen. And we have plans to complete that stacking in the coming weeks.
And a few miles west of Pad 37 is our Cape Giga Bay, where all Starship vehicles in Florida will be processed for flight. Recently, teams finished erecting all of the building's steel and are now working to finish the exterior of the structure. In the coming weeks, SpaceX will complete activation of the first crane in the building, set up the first integration stands, and complete platform work to be ready for supporting the first Starship vehicles that will arrive in Florida. We'll transport the rockets from Texas to Florida, and honestly, it's just going to be so exciting to see a Starship take flight from the Space Coast. Especially exciting as I had the opportunity to play a role in the Starship Cape program in my previous role, so
that's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Clearly, SpaceX's future in Florida is coming together quickly with planned launches already on the horizon, including regular trips to the moon. And speaking of the moon, NASA recently announced the Artemis 3 crew for the next moon mission. Let's head back up to Dan for more on that.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I mean, we're not going to take a minute. We're not going to take a minute to nerd out a little bit about the moon. So NASA just announced the Artemis 3 mission. That's going to be a crewed demonstration flight into low Earth orbit designed to demonstrate a lot of the critical systems needed for future lunar landings. We've got our astronaut crew, 3 from NASA, 1 from the European Space Agency. Randy Bresnik, Luca Parmitano, Frank Rubio, and Andre Douglas are going to crew that mission slated for 2027. That's going to be the penultimate mission, the final test before Artemis attempts to put astronaut boots back on the moon for the first time since 1972. For our part, we're going to be launching a Starship with a docking port on the nose so we can practice rendezvous and docking with the crew inside of Orion. One of our key test objectives is going to come after docking, where we're going to be able to test out the maneuverability of both vehicles while they're connected. This has some extra importance as the revamp plan for the Artemis landing missions are going to use Starship to do the burn that sends astronauts to the moon from Earth orbit. And one other cool ad that just came out today, NASA is going to be putting 2 SpaceX mini lasers on Orion to connect it to our Starlink constellation, where we already use thousands of lasers today. And they're going to be doing that with the goal of enabling 4K imagery and video from the spacecraft while they're in space. So a lot of excitement planned for next year as we all work together to send humans back to the moon, begin building a moon base, get to that future where anybody that wants to go to the moon is going to hopefully be able to go to the moon. So lots of really cool stuff to come. For now, though, we're at T-minus 6 minutes, 18 seconds into today's launch, and we're getting into terminal count. So let's zoom in. So range continues to be green. Weather continues to be gorgeous. We are getting into the final stages of propellant loading on both stages of Starship. Again, we're putting liquid oxygen, liquid methane on both the booster and the ship. Ship has main tanks. It also has those small header tanks in the very top and the nose of the vehicle that we're going to fill up. We're going to close out on the ship at about 2 minutes and 10 seconds before launch, and then the booster at about 2 minutes and 50. Once we're completely done prop loading, you've got about 11.5 million pounds of liquid propellant on board both stages. Then we start to get the pad itself ready for launch. We do what's called pushbacks. That's you're clearing out all of those propellant feed lines that have been flowing from the tank farm into the tower, into the vehicles, push it back into the tank farm, and then we also start purging all of those lines with an inert gas, just getting it ready for launch. We'll do final thrust vector steering controls on our Raptor engines at about T-minus 100 seconds and then T-minus 60 seconds. If a hold is needed, shocking change. It's now going to come at T minus 60 seconds. That's a new time. We've balanced out a couple of our final checks that happened before liftoff, and we moved them a little bit earlier before we start flying. So that time is now at T minus 60. That's the point where we can pause to wait. We'll only hold there if there's an issue, and we can recycle back.
Minus 60 seconds passes, a number of events will occur in rapid succession. Both the ship and booster will configure their comm systems for flight and will rapidly run leak checks on gas and fluid tanks. The booster will also go to internal power and its engines will get its final priming for launch, while the ship's engines begin their ascent bleed profile and it arms the automatic flight safety system. There's a lot of mechanical activations on the tower side as well, with one critical step, unlatching the quick disconnect feeding propellant into the ship.
And once T minus 60 seconds has passed, there is still the ability to rapidly recycle the count under certain conditions back to that T minus 60 second hold point. We can hold there and assess what happened and if teams can proceed again to T0. We've got about 5 to 8 minutes of hold time, and that will largely be driven by the propellant temperatures that we see on the vehicle while holding. The flame diverter on pad 2, which you can see the side profile of it there on your screen, that activates at T minus 17 seconds, and if we trigger a hold after that, it will result in a scrub for the day. So we're now just under 3.5 minutes until liftoff. If you've recently joined, we're planning to deploy 20 of our Starlink V3 satellites. These are real V3s on board, so that's exciting. We also would like to perform a Raptor in-space relight as well.
That's right, and actually on the screen now you're seeing an awesome view of our pad and the clouds that you're seeing coming off of our fuel tank farm, all now being used for its second time here for Flight 13.
All right, so we're through the 3-minute mark. So we should be closing out prop load on the booster any second now. And then the closeouts on the ship will come just a little bit after that. Again, we're looking a little over 11.5 million pounds of propellant on both of these vehicles. We are not currently tracking any holds on the board, which is always good news. Reminder, we have that built-in hold at T-minus 1 minute. We're only going to stop there if we run into an issue where we need a couple of minutes to hang out. But right now, we have no holds on the board. So a lot on deck for Starship, the second flight of Starship version 3. Booster version 3, Raptor 3, looking to get off the pad here in 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes in.
All right, so we are closing the fill drain valves for both vehicles. So we have finished out our propellant loading. 33 Raptor engines right there at the bottom of the booster getting ready to light up. Final wiggle checks happening now. You can see those inner 13 engines moving. Those are the ones that Super Heavy is going to be using to steer, do all its maneuvers. We just got through those. Okay, so we are 1 minute, 20 seconds away, counting down. We're going to listen in. Again, not tracking a hold, so we should move right past T-minus 1 minute. If we recycle back to it, we'll figure out why, and then we'll continue counting down. So let's go. T-minus 1 minute. Let's listen in. Let the rocket do the talking. See if we can get a Starship off the pad today.
57th anniversary of Apollo 11. We are go for launch.
We did trigger a hold.
We were almost go for launch. We have a hold.
So again, we have this hold built in. We've got a couple of checkouts that are going to happen on the vehicle and the pad that we've got to clear. A lot of it's tied to essentially the different pressures that are in the systems that are feeding prop into the vehicles. Looks like we are getting ready to reset that hold though. And the clock is rolling.
All right, 50 seconds. We are go for launch, hopefully. 30 seconds. That's 25 seconds.
And we did trigger a hold right at startup there. You saw we got a hold on the booster. So stick with us for a second.
Do you have some fire under the booster? No, it's just sunlight reflection? Yeah, it was just sunlight reflection.
So we did trigger a hold on the booster that aborted our liftoff as we were starting to light those Raptor engines. As a reminder, since we already turned the diverter on, we are going to be scrubbed for the day. The team's already starting to pull for offload of both vehicles, so starting to get the prop off.
Had to scrub as soon as they lost that. That kind of... That sucks,
We'll take a little bit of time to look into what triggered that abort. Usually we'll take some data review for all of our teams. But again, we did abort on the startup of the booster. So we weren't tracking any holds moving in to those final seconds into that final minute. But that is going to be a scrub for the day. So the team's now moving into commodity offload. We're going to take the methane and the oxygen off of both Starship and Super Heavy.
Well, that was a little unexciting, but hopefully if they launch tomorrow, it's just as nice
So
a day as
not
it is out
the
there today.
end result you're looking for, but we've got vehicle there still on the pad, and they're going to get these commodities offloaded. We'll take some time, dig into what triggered that abort once the booster was igniting to launch, and then we'll figure out what our path forward is going to be. Again, if you're just jumping in, we're not going to be launching today. We got all the way down to startup, triggered a hold on the booster, and that shut down the engines right as they were starting to ignite. All right, so at this point, they're going to get into offload. We're going to get all the methane, all the oxygen off the vehicle, and then we'll figure out next steps. So, no Starship launch today. We'll dig in with the teams, figure out what happened, and figure out when our next attempt is going to be. And obviously, we're going to keep you updated as well. So we'll dig into what our recycle time is, when we're going to be able to try again. Be sure to follow us on X at SpaceX. We're going to share updates there as soon as more information becomes available and when we can get back for flying. So thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully we'll be back real soon for Flight 13 and another attempt to get Starship off the pad. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully we'll be back maybe tomorrow or sometime soon.